Namaste and welcome to another bicycle live stream. Sunday, December the 15th, says here, riding over a bump at 7 a.m. And I've ridden 27 kilometres and it's a fairly peaceful morning this morning. Had a little bit of rain overnight, very small amount. There's still clouds in the sky, we might get some more. It's a bit muggy. As long as it rains, that's what we're aiming for. So, yesterday's live stream, I was talking about changing the colours of your sky using assertive courage. So today I want to follow on from that by looking at relative versus absolute truth and how this is connected with the way that we see things, how it comes about, why we end up with relative truth the way we do, and how it, as I say, changes the colours of our sky, the way that we actually see things. So I've also titled it The Many-Sided Mountain. Now, so let me start with the mountain as this analogy of absolute versus relative truth. A mountain is in and of itself absolute. But what is your view of the mountain? Which side of the mountain are you standing on relative to the other people in the world? Not, nobody can stand in the exact same position that you're standing in because you've taken that spot. So you have everyone standing with a slightly different view of the absolute truth. It doesn't change the absolute truth itself, but what it does change, of course, is our perception, our understanding of the absolute truth. So the absolute truth remains perfect and powerful in its in what it is, which is absolute. However, our understanding of it is relative. So we have what's called relative truth. And relative truth is actually the foundation of a lot of conflicts, a lot of basic conflicts, from, whose football team is better, right through to worldviews, right through to spiritual understandings. It comes down to what is your view of the mountain, because you will be absolutely certain that the side of the mountain that you see is the truth. There can be no other. You are seeing it and you are absolutely certain that that is the truth, and that will determine how you live your life, how you treat others, the values that you have, the goals that you set, all determined by where you stand in relation to the mountain of truth. And somebody on the other side is looking at the exact same mountain of truth, but their perspective, their angle of vision is different. It doesn't make it better or worse. It doesn't make it more or less. It's just different. They have a different view of the mountain of truth, and therefore how they relate to it, how it helps them understand life, the principles that they live by will be shaped by the fact that they're standing in a different spot. So the question should be asked, how did they end up standing in a different spot? That's a really good question. Let me give you another analogy. Imagine, and this is one that didn't come from me, but I love this analogy. Imagine that you're from, go back in time, you're from a quiet village where there's no automation as such, there's no cars, and you've grown up in this quiet village, and we're talking maybe going back 100 years or so. You've grown up in this quiet village. You have a very limited world view, I guess you could say. Your experience of the world is very limited. So, can I make the lights? Actually, I can. They're staying green. Thank you. I am most grateful. So, they decide to build a train track that's going to go past the village. None of the villagers have ever seen a train. They've heard descriptions of it, but they personally have not witnessed it. They have not experienced a train. They have not ridden in a train. They've not seen what it looks like with their own eyes. They've not heard the sound it makes. They've not felt the vibration. They don't have the personal experience of this train. So they build a train line, and when the first train is going to arrive and go past the village, somebody goes out to see what it looks like. Because everyone goes out, they're really curious. But somebody goes out earlier than the rest to see what it's like. And in the distance, before anyone else, he can see, as it approaches at night, this blinding light on the front of it. And so he races back and reports to the other villagers that he knows now what a train is. A train is a bright light, and there is noise, sort of a very thundery noise attached to it. Meanwhile, the second villager has gone out as also to investigate away from the rest of the group, and he stays there a bit longer as the train gets closer, and he sees the shape of it, and he is able to go back to the other villagers with more information. He is able to report that not only did he see a light and did he see and did he hear the sound of it and that as well, but he also saw the shape of it, and he described this massive silhouette, this huge beast of a machine coming down the tracks. And he started to get into an argument with the first person who'd come back and reported it, because the first person said, no, that's not what it is at all. It's just a bright light with a thundery noise. And the second person's arguing with him, going, you don't know what you're talking about. It's this huge machine on wheels thundering down the track. A third person, meanwhile, has gone on ahead to the station near the village, and he's waited until the train has actually come to the station and stopped, and he's gone on board the train. And at this point he sees that there are people sitting on the train, and there is a driver at the front, and there's a conductor. I don't know if they had conductors in those days, but that's what he sees. So his experience, when he goes back to the village and relays it to the villagers, is further enhanced. He speaks of it being a huge machine, but it was filled with people, with passengers and a driver, and it was an enhanced experience of what we could call the truth. So this analogy is to describe that each person's viewpoint of the train in that situation, in that scenario, was correct relative to where they were standing in relation to the train. And so they had a relative truth, and it was a perspective of the absolute truth, being the train, and every one of them was right. They saw different parts of the truth, and some of them had a more enhanced outlook of the truth. But each of them was correct in what they saw and what they experienced. that was their experience of the truth. So the question is, how do we, or why do we end up with different perspectives? Why are we standing in different parts, different sides of the mountain, in different spots, seeing different relative amounts of the truth? And apologies if the wind is a bit annoying. It's hard for me to tell, so I can't hear my own sound, can't hear my own voice, but if it is annoying, give it another minute and it'll drop down, or 30 seconds. So how this happens is we are subjected to a number of situations when we're growing up. We're subjected, I think, from a starting point. If we go from a starting point, we can talk about being subjected to, as we're born into this body, we bring with us karma on our eternal timeline that we are on. We are on an eternal timeline, and only very, very, very temporarily in this body. The relative time that we spend in this body compared to eternity is so minuscule, it's almost immeasurable. And so we bring with us karma from previous actions into this body. This karma determines a number of things, such as when and where we take birth, who we take birth, who our parents are, the lessons that we are going to be subjected to. Good morning, Kathleen. Thank you for watching. All of these come back to what our previous actions were in previous lifetimes and the reactions. Karma is just simply a reaction to an action. It's not a judgment. It's not a you've done good or you've done bad or done right or wrong. It's simply a reaction. We label it with judgments. We say, oh, that was terrible or that was good, depending on our perspective of somebody's situation or our own situation. But as I say, it's just an automatic, natural reaction to our actions. It's a universal law that also applies in the physical world. So, because of our actions in previous lives, because of the way that we have lived our life, the decisions that we've made, the interactions we've had with others, that has set up in our karmic bank account different types of karma, different types of reactions that we will be facing as lessons, and that we have the free will to choose whether we think that that is a good lesson or a bad lesson for us, which will be determined by these lessons we go through and the wisdom that we gain from them. So the lessons, from the lessons, we gain wisdom. We gain experience, we gain wisdom, and as we continue on in this body, the environment that we are growing up in is also going to subject us to lessons and challenges and cars at roundabouts. And so we are not put in situations that we did not previously create, because it all works perfectly, the perfect functioning of the universe. So if it's really windy now, then that's perfectly arranged. So we are put in perfect situations as a result of what we've done previously. So if we want to complain that something that is happening to us shouldn't be happening to us, then we have the power to look at why that's happening to us and to understand that we were responsible for the creation of the path that we are on now. We made the decisions in our mind to choose a certain direction, which comes with a certain responsibility. Free will has a responsibility, and that is the reaction to our actions. So because of that, we end up standing in different spots, different places around the mountain of truth, seeing it from different perspectives, and absolutely, dare I say, arrogantly convinced that our view is the only view there is. Our view is our relative truth, and it is significant in our journey because it shows us where we're at, and it's come about because of the position that we've been standing in on the mountain, but it is not the absolute truth. The absolute truth, without our perspective, is when we step away from the mind, from the view that we have from the mind, and as I say so many times, when we tap into the wisdom that exists in our heart, that is absolute and is not tainted by our view. The wisdom in our heart is totally perfect and is capable of guiding us faultlessly. That should be our goal, that should be our aim in life, to learn how to tap into that wisdom. I guess the first part would be to know that we have the ability to do that, and to learn how to tap into that wisdom, that guidance. That is the wisest thing that we can do, is to acknowledge that there is an absolute truth within us, and then to learn how to tap into that absolute truth. So next weekend, I'll talk about the easiest method to do that, one that has been followed for, well, many thousands of years, and so I'll talk about that next weekend, assuming it's not pouring rain. And I hope it is pouring rain and I don't get a chance to talk about it, because then I'll because that's more important. That's what we need more. So I hope that's helped you a bit, given you some food for thought. Enjoy your Sunday. Get past here. Remember to live vegan and save lives. Have a great day. And remember, you are loved always. Ahimsa.